And a lot of people kind of dismiss this because they think that it goes along playing the race card. You know, that you're just saying that the school system's racist and it's too simple, but it's actually a series of occurrences like this. In the class, we also talk about over-incarceration of African-American males and police brutality and unjust...
all sorts of wonderful stuff.
Yeah. And so, I mean, are there any thoughts or feelings or...
Well, I will say this, that, you know, my last name is Martinez, and, I don't really look at... my family is actually Spanish. Like, my great-grandfather was from Spain. Like, he wasn't, like my family never, lived in Mexico. Like, we, came to the United States.
Yeah.
That being said, a lot of people don't get that. And so from people that don't, this sounds really bad, but in a way it kind of ties to what you're saying. For me personally, before people meet me, they usually expect me to be a hardcore Mexican kid. Like
what would a hardcore Mexican kid be?
Well, like, let me put it to you this way, and this goes perfectly with what you're talking about, like the cultural divide.
Right.
My whole life, when I've signed up to go to things like conferences or things like that, they always give me the option of having like a translator or having, or if I would prefer to room with a person of like Mexican, Middle American, South American descent.
Anytime that you've observed
I was at the high school when the No Child Left Behind kicked in, and that really messed over our whole society. So
tell them where they think they should be instead of actually encouraging where they should go. Yeah.
Do you have any?
I don't know. I have some experience with it. I mean, I just remember when I was in like 8th grade, even when I would just start speaking in class, the teacher would tell me to go sit outside. I think that's one of the major parts that I had with it.
Yeah.
And it got me to the point where I really didn't care. I was like, whatever. But, you know, at least I graduated high school and not in prison, you know. I knew that kind of direction where it was going, you know, like this doesn't feel right. I mean,
you know about the Socratic method? Socrates?
No, if you could talk about that, that'd be cool.
Well, it's like No Child Left Behind. It's like, I mean, we want to treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
And Socrates was like, well, we're not all the same. We're special in our own right. So it's like, we ask the teacher and he has all the answers. It's like, well, I'm different from you and he's different from you. And so it's like Socrates is the one who asked the students the questions. And they had the answers because we're all different. We all want something different.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for me. Like, you know what pisses me off? On the U.S. Census, you have two options at the beginning of the census or any of that type of information. It says, are you Hispanic/Latino, which means Hispanic and or Latino. We don't even care if you're from South America or if you're from Spain.
Just one of those.
Yeah, you're just one of those two. Or white.
It gets me mad, but that's why I'm not in school now, because I already know I'm going to get told this is wrong and this is right, and I should be told, like, what do you think, instead of just putting me straight down or trying to lift me straight up.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, what I went through from kindergarten all the way to, say, high school, just all the stuff that I've been through as being a native, an Indian, being poor, my family being poor, and then I just knew that, you know, that we were being discriminated against in one way or another, you know.
That's like a normal thing.
Only based on your last name.
Just only based on my last name. And I'll tell you honestly that this happened to me, that I had an employer when I show up, like we kind of talked, and he said that when he saw my name, he thought that I might be one of those kids that the parents didn't want them to face some sort of racism, so they gave him a super white first name or like a super American first name.
Yeah.
So like my whole name is Avery Scott Maximus Martinez, but and this goes along with it too. When I'm on the radio, when I'm on stage and things like that, my stage name is Avery Scott because it's easier for me to get jobs and interviews and things like that by having the last name Scott instead of Martinez. In certain instances, if you're going for something that is supposed to be, you know, ethnic, then to go with a name like Avery Martinez, it's great.
If you experienced it, but you didn't really know what it was called, you couldn't categorize it until you took this class, right?
Yeah. Well, the way I can explain it is through just the way everything that what the native people went through from the beginning all the way up to now to today. From that beginning where the Indian people were being pushed westward, all of that from acculturation through the genocide, through all that stuff. There's some other words I can't remember, through Christianization and all that stuff. I kind of feel like all that step is kind of like the same thing as the school to prison pipeline. What they're doing to these kids, these students.
With what you're saying about school, I definitely agree that especially when it comes to like Mexican American, Hispanic American, South American families, there is a specific form of invisible racism is what I guess I would put it as. That
like subtle
racism in the fact that it's like by trying not to be racist, you're being racist. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
like what efforts to not be racist?
Like there was a kid that went to my school and his name was Adrian Ramsey and he was a really great guy and we got along really, really well. But Adrian was from Tijuana, like he had moved, like immigrated, like didn't jump the border, immigrated to America, and he was going to high school, where I went to high school, and Adrian had a really thick, Mexican accent because he was born and raised like clear until he was like in like sophomore year of high school in Mexico, and so the thing was that a lot of people wouldn't talk to him because they couldn't understand his accent. So what wound up happening was a lot of people wouldn't talk to him. And they would blame it on the fact that they couldn't understand what he was saying.
Right, that's like a cop-out.
Yeah, exactly.
These kids torn away from their parents, and then in both ways, it hurt the parents, and then it hurt the kids themselves. Some of these kids, they lost their lives over there. They couldn't handle it. Yeah. So it's kind of like a military kind of style of boarding school, which was implemented on these Indian kids, and also being Christianized in that sense. Their hair was, they were cut off, they were torn from their culture, and all this stuff can take a toll on a person. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to explain, that what I went through.